Well, all right, let's go. Hey, everybody. How are you? I think there might be a couple more coming in. Genevieve and Miko, Jen, Ms. Kwan, as it is on here.
Sorry, I'm a teacher, so
No,
that's fine. It says that.
it's just so
I
cute.
should change it.
It's all good.
I taught dance and gymnastics, and I was always Miss Jen. So I
Right,
just
Jen,
really
yeah.
use Miss Jen for everything.
I love that little trend when my daughter was young, you know, everybody was Ms. and then their first name, and it was just so sweet. So sweet. I really I think I want to do this. Yeah, that's better. That way I can hear y'all better. I try not to put my headphones on because I just hate it, but I'm still listening through my headphones. They're just off to the side. So I don't want things to feedback, So um well, all right. Just added a couple more there. See if anybody, I don't know if they're coming online. Feel free to, share your camera if you want. If you don't want to, that's completely fine. Um, it always makes me feel not alone. So, um, happy Tuesday the 8th. Um, nice to see you guys. How's your beginning of your week going? So far, so good. All right, good. Um, well, I'm here to answer your questions and whatever they might be. Um, and then also at some point, and perhaps from the start, I will tell you about I have a workshop coming up um, for acting for video games, and I'm changing the date of it. It was scheduled for the 26th and 27th of October, I think. But I'm going to move it to the, where's the date? To the 9th to the 9th and 10th of November. Then where'd everybody go? There we are. To the 9th and 10th of November. Um, I I did not give myself enough time to really advertise for it. It's like it's, you know, 2.5 weeks away. And and I just think that the way that people this is true of myself too. The way that people take in information and kind of decide if they want to participate in something is like you have to look at it, kind of go, oh, that's interesting. Do I want to do that? Well, I'll think about it, right? And you kind of, and then you have to see it again, and then you have to see it again, and then you make a choice, you know? So I just feel like I wasn't giving people enough opportunity to go through that whole process, you know? And I just really wanted to do that. I wanted to be able to maximize that possibility. So I'm going to send out, a corrected date, um, and all that good stuff. Um, and just to give you uh sort of an overview of it, it's acting for video games, and it really also applies to pretty much everything. It's really it certainly is helpful in animation auditions, but it's also really helpful in commercial auditions, and certainly is useful in audiobook narration. It's really, um, I'm not a Meisner teacher, but I have studied Meisner, and it's really just taking some of the basic principles of Meisner technique. Hi, Brad. To voiceover, which is really learning how to use your imagination in all the things, right? And a lot of times we voice actors think, particularly if we don't come from an acting background, we think that we don't have very good imaginations, but that's just not true. We use our imaginations every single day. Um, when we think about the future, when we contemplate a decision that we're going to make about something important in our lives, we are actively engaging the possibilities of what might come from from a decision that we make, right? So we're constantly using our imaginations. We're looking forward into the future and imagining what might come. And it is the exact same imagination that you use in any kind of scenario where you are in dialogue. Um, and in truth, the vast majority of voiceover, even if we're the only person in the spot, is still dialogue because we're always talking to someone. We're not just talking in a vacuum. Um, so, so I do think that it's beneficial for every voice actor. Um, and we'll be reading video game copy, and um, and it's video game copy that is not creature monster oriented. It's real human orientation. May throw in an elf here and there, you know, but but they're like, human characteristics. Um, human characteristics. So not, it's not, this will not be an exercise in how to save your voice, you know, um, creating creatures and monsters and stuff like that. I don't do those video games because, as I'm sure you've heard me say, I have done roles that require so many efforts that I've destroyed my voice, and I don't ever want to do that again. So, so just so you know that that's kind of where the the focus of the workshop is. It's on sort of human relational characters. It's good also for if you do any dubbing of any kind. There's a lot of dubbing going on. And even though with dubbing, what I actually love about dubbing, some people don't like it because they think it's boring. Oh my gosh, I just think it's the most interesting work. It's so subtle. It doesn't pay well, but you know, if for me, it's union, which is helpful. There's non-union dubbing too, so there's all kinds, um, but I just find the work to be really interesting. It's the minutia of the work, which I really love. So it's helpful to that too, even though in dubbing we're actually looking at characters and we're seeing and we're actually relating, which is kind of cool. But again, it's a muscle that we exercise, the engagement of our imagination. So that's really what it's about. So there'll be lots of time to read copy, to ask questions, and we will do. I taught this class at One Voice this past August in Dallas, and one of the comments I got, I always try to get feedback, through Jotform to find out how I can improve a class, and one of the things that was said was, you know, um, it it would be helpful actually to learn how to do efforts. I sort of build it as like we're not going to do all the effort stuff, but I'm going to incorporate some effort stuff in here. It's not going to be extensive, but there are certain tips and techniques to doing efforts that can help you and save you and give you ideas. Again, like I remember one very simple example. Um, Sissy Jones, I'm not sure if you're familiar with her. She's a voice actor who does a lot of animation and video game work, and actually at the very beginning of her career won a BAFTA for best performance in a video game. Um, and she taught me, about efforts, how to make, because usually when you're doing an effort, you're getting, you're throwing a punch or you're receiving a punch, right? And how many times can you do that and have them sound different? And you're usually asked to do a series of them, right? So you want to do 3 to 5 in a row. It's like, well, how do you make those all sound different? You know? And she just taught me this very, very simple thing of just use vowels right? Like A-E-I-O-U, right? Eh, ah, oh, as simple as that, and all of a sudden you have 5 different sounds, so little things like that, and the sort of the physical difference between receiving a punch and throwing one, and they sound different, so little stuff like that. So it's not going to be some long extensive thing about efforts, but even when you do a character that isn't particularly violent, or it's not a violent game per se, very often you're going to end up having to do, some kind of efforts. And so that'll be incorporated in there too. Um, so I'm excited about that. It's a new class for me. And again, I tried it out in August, and it was well received, and um it was good stuff. So let's just open the floor and bring your questions. And if you have questions about the workshop, I'm obviously totally happy to answer those. And then any other questions that may be lurking or that have come up for you this week that you need me to answer, I'm happy to do it. You can just go down in the bar, if you put your cursor down over the bottom, um, there's a thing that says react. And if you hit the heart on react, it'll give you a menu which includes raise your hand. So if you do that, then I can recognize you. And if you can't figure out how to do that, then literally raise your hand and I will recognize you. Brad.
I can't. I just need to go back to something you just said.
Okay.
Can't imagine you throwing or receiving a punch. So where do you get the inspiration for that? Because I
I
just
don't know. I think Kay is a little scrappy. I think
no, I'm not
she's
talking about I'm not talking about you, babe, Jen. I'm talking about my voiceover whisperer.
no, I
Well,
think
as you know,
she's got it in her.
I hate doing efforts. I hate it, but I've been punched in the stomach before. I went through 6th grade, and um what do I want to say? I remember I have to tell you this little story. So this guy, we were in, I think, 5th or 6th grade, and his name was Danny. I can't remember his last name, but he wanted to go steady with me. And this was back in the days that if you wanted to go steady, you know, the boy would give you his St. Christopher medal, right? So you'd wear the necklace, his St. Christopher, right? And I I'm like a preacher's daughter, right? Baptist preacher's daughter. So this boy Danny wanted to go steady with me, and I came home wearing this, like St. Christopher's medal, and my dad was like, "What are you wearing?" I was like, "Well, it's a St. Christopher's medal. Where did you get that?" And I said, "I got it from Danny. He wanted me to go steady." And my dad was like, "You're in sixth grade. You don't need to go steady with anybody, right? It's not the time. Like, do your homework and you have practice for, running track after." So the next day I went back to school and I'm like, "Danny, I can't go steady with you." I took the necklace off and I gave it to him and he punched me in the stomach. And I was like, "No, no, actually he kicked me in the stomach." He kicked me, right? And I was like, truly a gut punch. Like all the wind was knocked out of me. And I was just like, oh my God. Anyway, those were the days, right? That
I
was
hate
like,
that kid already, for crying out loud.
I'm sorry.
I hate that kid
I
already.
know. I wish I could remember his last name. I'd look him up. But I want to say that was like 1972. Something like that. Like it was a long time ago when such things existed and you didn't go to the principal's office. You were just like, okay, thank you. Like, see you in class, But yeah, I've been gut punched. I haven't hit. I don't really hit. I don't hit people. So I have to learn. I had to learn how to hit. But
I couldn't imagine that. Sorry. So
anyway, any other question there from you, Brad, while you're there? No?
no, I love to say hi, and I'm gonna have to leave in a minute, but
Okay.
yeah, I'm sure
Okay.
you're awesome.
All right. Thank you. All right, I'm gonna look here and see if there's something in here. Um, Catholic iconography. Yes. Um, yes, Jeff. Oh my God, you were punched. Yuck. Um, all right, so I don't see any questions in here. Uh, anybody? Anybody have anything? I'm so happy to answer them. It doesn't matter how minor they might be, how minor you might think they are. Uh, there we go. Hello, Ms. Kwan.
Hi. Okay,
Hi.
how do I unraise my hand? But
Oh, you just go back down and hit it again.
oh, okay. Um, Question about your workshop. Is it
Yeah,
online or is it in
it's
person?
online.
Oh,
Yeah,
great. Okay,
it's
that would be
online.
fantastic.
I'm in Nashville
Okay.
these days. And so um, that will be kind of the really interesting thing to teach this class online because uh, there are some exercises that we will do together, which in my brain, this is where I have to extend my imagination, right? Because in my brain, it's like, oh, you can only do those kind of exercises in person. And it's like, that's not true. you know so I have to reimagine it for myself.
Oh, great.
So yeah, it is online and it's 2 days and I'll give it to you in Pacific time. I'm Central time, but in Pacific time both days are 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. with an hour break or lunch-ishness, like
Okay. Oh,
I
great.
think I think an hour. It'll be an hour total. It might be, half an hour for lunch with a couple of 15-minute breaks on either side. Whatever people want to do, but it'll be 5 hours of work each day. So it's 10 hours of uh of work. So
Okay.
and um all that's required is an interest, that you're a voice actor and you have interest in learning such things. And again, there's a lot of stuff that's just it's acting based, but it's acting in the realm of voiceover, which is what I've done forever. And every once in a while I have thrown in a play and a live acting class myself, just in my own acting life, but I've mostly applied 99.9% of this I've applied to myself as a voice actor. So
Oh, great. I have a question also.
Yeah.
So I am, and maybe a lot of you more experienced people can help me, but I'm kind of newer to, I'm starting auditioning this year and I'm doing more and more. And I know everyone says, oh, you have to get very quick at auditioning. And it still takes me a long time, I guess, to figure out the script. Sometimes I need to record and kind of listen back and ruminate over what I think I need to do. And then, but it takes me some time. So I'm always curious about everyone else's auditioning process. How do you do 3 takes and then walk away and then come back? I've tried all these different um, suggestions from different friends and coaches. And so I'm always curious about what you think about that sort of thing. Even like developing a character. I mean, it could take me a while to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I will tell you this from my perspective, and then people can join in there. Um, let's see. Uh, what am I trying to do here? Sorry. Um, speaker. What do I want? Okay. Uh, I would say this. It will, your audition process will evolve. And so it's nothing to become terribly concerned or, you know, hyper focused on, right? Because as you get better, and as you cultivate your capacity to read the script, right, and analyze the script, things will start to move more quickly. They will. So there's kind of an evolution to it. And as long as you are able to turn things in a timely way, that's really the marker. It's not so much how long does it take me to create this thing, do I have the time to do it in my own schedule so that I can turn it in on time? That's really what matters. And I think different auditions require they have different requirements. Um, Animation auditions always take me longer. I've had animation auditions that have required my singing and have required me to upload a soundtrack, that I sing to. It requires me learning the song and then recording the song and sort of becoming a music engineer for a, a day, and sometimes those auditions take me 2 or 3 hours, because sometimes the course of getting to the audition and being able to audition it takes me a couple of days, so that I can learn the song well enough to really sing it, to really do it in whatever character I'm supposed to be doing it. There are some commercial auditions that take me one pass and I don't need to edit anything. And from start to finish, it takes me 3 minutes, to do it, top and tail the thing and send it, you know, and top and tail. I don't know where that came from. I don't know if that's a radio term or what, but it's like, you edit the top part out and you edit the bottom part out, top and tail, right? And then you got the thing and then you send it, so that's all that really means. So again, I think the focus should be on turning it in a timely manner and then allowing yourself however much time you need in order to do the audition. Along with that um, comes the how you prioritize your auditions, right? Because some auditions have a tight turnaround. Well, you kind of have to go in and make your assessment of all the auditions, which ones are due first, and you do those first so that and how many times have I not done that? And I find myself working on the fourth audition that I have for that day. And then I look at the deadline and I'm like, okay, this was due yesterday. I do silly stuff like that sometimes and I'd make myself crazy. But had I gone through everything and looked and seen the date and the time, it would have been like, oh yeah, I would have done that yesterday and it would have been first on my list. But so there's there's the prioritization of what you've got in your inbox. Um, but really, like, I'm faster now than I was 10 years ago. I'm a lot faster than I was 25 years ago. It's like, you do it often enough and you're like, you know, it just moves. So be easy on yourself there and just allow it and allow it to unfold. And it's nice to get other people's perspective on what they do. Sometimes that's helpful in helping us to organize our day. But in the end, we have to do what works for us, and your process may end up being different than anybody else's. And so that's totally fine. It's your life, your career, and your way of doing things. So, Brad, you have a comment?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, for me and for a lot of the people that I talk to, there's two different things. Your really great audition opportunities from agents have to be treated differently than the fast food approach to casting site opportunities. And that doesn't mean casting site opportunities are poopy. It just means that there is a timetable for, if there's a great opportunity on Voice 123 and it's a $800 something or other, the sooner you get it in, the better. And what Kay's talking about is so true about it. Your process will evolve and change as you soak it all up and become really good. My After 9 years, my auditioning for casting sites is about a 4-minute average, sometimes a little less. And then for agents, it's as long as it needs to be. But I treat them, that's the difference, is agents and then casting sites. And
Hmm.
casting sites, the sooner you get that in, the better you are. And for me, it's all about um, getting really comfortable, completely ignoring your space, your equipment, and learning how to just be your voice and not the voice you think somebody else is. Then you can just sort of relax, and it takes no time at all and almost no editing. It's like boom, 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 out it goes. Oh, I think I'll do 10 more in this hour and a half. And it's
Wow.
totally possible.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah,
I
it is.
seem to do a lot of editing. Like, oh, I'll like part of this take and part of that take. And then you know,
Yeah.
I've been,
When you get to the point where you're in your slot and you know what you want to do, the
Mhm.
less Frankensteining you do, because people,
Okay.
a savvy voice buyer will hear you took this section from this one and this from this, because things change in your booth and your attitude and your proximity. So it's better when you get comfortable and you just bang it out and don't overthink it and don't stress about it, because there's a million of them, and it's all about people hearing you.
That's a really good point there, Brad. Like don't what's that great um don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. Uh
Yeah,
Mm,
I turn that one around. And I say, don't let perfect be the enemy of fabulous, because fabulous is completely a subjective term. And I
yeah.
just want everything I do to be fabulous. So if you're trying to be perfect, you're going to you're going to skip over the opportunity to just knock someone out of the park with what you do.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I totally get that. I think we have sometimes, at least a lot of us do. I do. Um, I have this kind of like this audition has to be perfect and so it's my perception of what perfection is, which I think, to your point, Brad, is like, well, that may not be the perception on the other side with the casting director. What you do imperfectly, it may be the fabulous thing, that the casting director is looking for. So like, don't sweat the small stuff, I think, is another kind of catchphrase, you know. And the nuance of a little bit of a read in this take versus that take. This is why in the beginning I do an overview listen, and I go, really, does the second take really sound different than the first? you know and if the overall tone of the thing is like, no, it doesn't, it's really very similar, then I don't send that second take. I don't, because they need to be different. They need to be, a first and second take, right? But if you're choosing a part of of an audition to kind of Frankenstein with another part? Is it because, okay, if you flubbed a word, right? Okay, if you tripped, okay, if there's a sound issue, right? Okay, like that, I totally get that. That's a good reason to Frankenstein. But if you think that it's because of a nuance in the read, like let it fly, because they're listening for an overall tone, right? An overall vibe. And one little phrase isn't going to necessarily shift it. And I think that's how we get used to putting out a lot of stuff. When I was first in voiceover, we didn't record ourselves. We recorded in-house at our agent's office or we would go into a casting house, and we didn't get to do that. It's like you have 5 minutes. And so you work and you read, you know, um, before you get in the booth. And when you get in the booth, you have 2 takes, and that's it. And unless you really screw up the copy, they're not going to say, let's go back and redo the second half of that. They're just not going to do it. They have a line of people out the door. So that, in a certain sense, I was fortunate enough to learn that way, because that's what I do in my booth, right? And as I look back on it, I go, okay, so it's just habit. It's just the development of a habit, right? Of learning how to do something quickly, accepting what you've done, and moving on with your day. That's the habit that you want to get into. Um, so there you go.
I really appreciate that. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
absolutely. Michael, welcome to those of you who just arrived. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks. I had kind of the odd thought of what Brad was talking about, as far as how fast do you get the the casting submission in vis-a-vis the deadline. I was thinking, and I'm at the beginning of my voice acting journey as well. I have more experience in stage acting and motion media. And we hear horror stories for commercial and on camera of if you don't get your your tape in 12 hours before the deadline, then they could already be on callbacks by the time you get it in and things like that. So
Yeah, yeah.
I would think that your agent, yeah, I don't know. I guess I was thinking that you'd want your agent submissions to be in fairly promptly, although do the whole process. And then I was thinking maybe because the pay to play sites are sort of scattershot, I would probably be willing to push those toward deadline a little bit more. Any
Yeah,
thoughts on that?
there's a lot to weigh in that, because sometimes if you're getting something from an agent, you're on a shorter list, of people that are auditioning. Um, and and so you want to go where the odds are, in terms of how you prioritize. Um, but sometimes on the pay to plays, they only want 10 people, not very often, but if that happens, right? A lot of times it's 25 or it's 50, sometimes it's 100, right? But I think if there are 78 already submitted and they want 100, it's like, all right, I got to weigh that. I don't know if they're going to get to me. But if you're inside, the first portion of that, and you're early, on a pay to play, that might be a good place to throw your first efforts. With regard to agents, what agents do, they will give us a deadline, right? But that's not their deadline, right? Their deadline is usually further out than that. And
Right.
they collect all of theirs and they submit all at once. It's like, here's our roster of people, right? And unless the audition says it's an ASAP and we are doing a rolling submission, right? And if it's a rolling submission, they are submitting as they receive the auditions from their clients. But they will specify that. They'll say, it's rolling, get it in as quickly as you can. And then they'll give you a drop dead, timeline. Like if you don't get it in by 4 p.m., it's not going to be submitted, right? So again, it's looking at the audition and really reading what the deadlines are, what the specs are, all of that. And a part of the evaluation is what are my odds? You know, what are my odds? You know,
Right.
when you receive things, it's a very interesting thing about agency submissions too. And if you're on a few different rosters and you get the same audition from different agents, rosters that you're on, you obviously you only turn in the audition for one of those. You can't multiple submit. It's just bad form. It's your read is your read, and it's a waste of the casting director's time. And then you confuse everything because if you book it, who did it come from? And then you got to figure that out. It's a mess. So you choose one, right? And uh but what's interesting is I'll get I'll get an audition, right? And it will not be from my primary agent. And then I'll wait a little bit, you know, and let's say the initial one I got has a deadline. What's today? Tuesday. Let's say it has a deadline of Thursday, noon Eastern. And then I get it from my primary agent, and the deadline is Wednesday, uh, you know, noon Eastern. Well, so they've given themselves at least a 24-hour lead, but they also want to be the first to turn it in because the chances are of that agent, they're going to start listening. And if they hear what they want to hear in the first batch of auditions, they may cast before that other agency ever turns it in. Um, so if you happen to be on a couple of different rosters and you tend to get repeat auditions because they're all coming from, let's say, Sound and Fury, and Sound and Fury always casts a wide net, then you have to look, you have to see the pattern and see when the date due is for each of those agencies. And, I mean, for me, I will always submit with my primary agency because they are my primary agency, regardless of whether their date is a little later or earlier or whatever. That's my agreement. That's the agreement everybody has with me, right? If I get on a second or third roster, I'm always like, just so you know, if there's a repeat here, I take it with Atlas, like that they're my primaries. And everybody's like, okay, we understood, right? Like in a way, it's a very simple question. And in another way, like you really have to dissect all these you know, finer things. But again, it's a process. I didn't start thinking about that, until 10 years ago, when I got on a second roster and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
how do I manage that? Like, what do I do there? So it's a process and you learn as you go. And, if you make mistakes, and God knows I have made plenty of them, like, I should write a book about those. It's all an opportunity to learn how the whole system works and to refine it. And, we just have to stay humble and respectful, and all of that. But by and large, you prioritize, and then you further refine your prioritization. That's how that goes. So
That's great. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah.
You're
Great
welcome.
insights. Thanks.
Good. Genevieve. Oh, can you turn your unmute?
Oh, sorry.
There
Must
you
have
are.
said
That's all right.
that. I just have a quick question. I'm wondering, like, if I'm not interested for video games, if
Mhm.
I'm not interested in something that has a lot of swearing, foul language, like, is that made clear, or should I just steer away from the genre entirely, or?
Um, you if you have it, y- it's always good to do a little bit of reconnaissance about the type of game that you're doing, and it depends upon where, and the type of reconnaissance that you do is dependent upon where you get the audition and whether or not it's a new game, or if it's a new game that's a part of a series of game. I mean, like how many Call of Duty video games are there? Many. And so it's really easy to do. I don't even think anybody has to do any research on that. They're violent and there's a
Yeah.
lot of foul language, like so. But if you're working with an agent, you can ask your agent, and just say, I'm not really interested in like really violent or like a lot of foul language, or if you have video games that are geared more toward kids, like little kids, I'm interested in those. I'd really like to voice those kinds of things. And they are out there for sure. Um, yeah, there are certain types and genres, as Jeff is saying right here. Um, yeah. Oh, that's very good, right? So you can also go by the rating system and ask for no M-rated games, right? So if they're rated mature, like then that's probably not what you want to do, right? Um, I I'm I don't feel so badly about language. I don't want so much violence um for uh for a couple reasons. The obvious one, but also they destroy my voice. And so I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do those. So it's perfectly reasonable for you to do the kinds of games that you want to do. Totally.
Okay.
It's your career and you get to make those choices. And my agents, I think I have verbalized it to them. I don't do it every single time. Um, Sometimes maybe if I'm a request for something and I look at it and I'm like, oh man, this is so violent, or this is so like where it will say like this has a lot of language, I'll just reply and say, I am so grateful for the request. Please communicate my gratitude for the request. And it's not a game I can do, and I don't do it because it's my career. It's not theirs. And in the end, I have to be the one who I live with myself. I have to sleep at night, right? I have to do the things that I'm like, would my daughter, this is always the question for me. It's like, would my daughter be proud of me or would my daughter be horrified?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
my daughter, I swear on occasion, and she was always my little policeman, you know, like in the car. In the car is where I would just like, oh, I'm sorry I said that. I didn't mean to. Don't listen to what I say. She would just be like, can't even believe you said that. She was she was the language police. But I do think about that. I think about what's your barometer, and you get to determine it. You really do. And I've never gotten any backlash about that. No one's ever come to me and said, hey, K-Bess, you are ruining your career by not reading those things. Now, does it limit my chances of work? Absolutely it does. That's the choice you make, right? That's the consequence. If I say I'm not going to read this genre, well, I'm not going to have work opportunities there. Okay, well, I can live with that. I'm willing to live with that. So, yeah,
Great. Thank you.
yeah. I saw something in here, and then Terry, I'm going to get to you. Let's see. I saw something in here. Oh, that's so funny. I just saw a thing, not to be sexist, but a kick from a guy to a girl in that era. I know, but we were in grade school, so it's like nobody has any control over themselves in grade school, you know. So, like, I'm not mad at Danny. He was full of hormones. Like, what are you gonna do? So okay. All right, Terry,
Hey everybody, hey Kay,
how are you?
doing okay.
Good.
My question is about when getting a career evaluation. What specific questions should you be asking? Just like the normal questions and anything out of the box that you may not think of
So
initially.
what do you mean when you say when you get a career evaluation? What does that mean to you? Like you are
So
asking someone to evaluate your career, or
yes, at this point, like where you are and where to get to where you want to be.
okay, so who might be asking you that question?
Like there are people who offer, so there are coaches who offer career evaluations, like they do it at the Atlanta Voiceover Studios. They
Okay.
offer one there. They offer at an Edge Studio with David Goldberg. Like there's several. like people in the industry that offer that.
Okay. Okay, that's helpful. So my sense is that what all they're going to be asking you questions, right? Like, when did you start? What kinds of work do you like to do? Where are you represented? Are you on any pay to play sites? How are your demos? Do you have a website, right? So they're going to be asking you these questions, and it really pertains to, I think, your readiness, right? Um, and really just where you are on the path. And all of us are at different places on the path, right? So it's just know that it's not necessarily an evaluation of your talent, or it's really an evaluation of your readiness, and whether or not you're ready for the next thing or ready for a particular thing. That's my sensibility. If somebody comes to me for an evaluation, I'm simply checking where they are in their career, what kind of experience they have, and whether or not, or and what stage they're um, in all the tools that we use for our careers. Some people come to me with little to no experience. Some people say, I've been doing this for a year and I feel like I'm ready to go get agents. And I'm like, yeah, you're not ready, but we hear so many different things from different coaches, you know, depending upon who the coach is, and depending upon what it is that they're trying to sell you, literally and figuratively.
Hmm.
So, we hear the sort of stereotype of, like, make in 6 figures in 6 months. You have those kinds of coaches who are sort of saying, if you learn how to play the lottery right, you'll be a millionaire by the end of the year. And it's like, yeah, that's just, it's not how it works, right? So I think the evaluation is really, it's like, I wouldn't be fearful of it or anything like that. I think it's literally going to someone who's been in the business long enough to be able to say, here's what you're ready for, here's what you need to work on. Here are places where you can improve before you move to the next thing. So all the things that you would sort of, you already have all the answers to the questions that they're going to ask, because you are living your career and you have been in it, So how long you've been doing it. If you have demos, you know who made those demos, if they're current or you did them 3 years ago. If you did them on your own or if you hired a particular professional to do them. If you're booking on pay-to-play sites. You know all those things. So I don't even necessarily know that there's anything for you to prepare for, except to speak the truth about where you are in your career. And any place that you are in your career is totally fine. You're not better or worse. You're just at a particular place in it, right? Does that make sense? Did I answer your question? I hope I understood it properly.
I actually preferred your answer than to answer what I actually asked you.
I wish I knew. I wish I understood, like, what the original intent was of your question. Do you want to try
No,
on one more
I
time?
was just saying, like, if I were to come to you for a career assessment and you were like,
Oh,
all
okay.
right, are your demos good? Are you booking? Do you have agents? What type of work have you got so far? And I'd be like, okay, I want to do, I don't know, promos for ABC. What would be the next steps that I would need to go in that direction? Or if I want to do, I want to be a narrator for the Discovery Channel.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
it really depends upon where you want to go as to what an assessment will tell you.
That's exactly right. And it depends upon the genre, and it depends upon where you live. There are all kinds of factors that play in to whatever particular type of genre that you're interested in, right? If you're interested in doing commercials, you can do them from anywhere. if you're interested in doing animation at this point in the game, you need to be in Los Angeles. If you don't already, if you're not an established animation voice actor, if you're an established voice actor, you can move out of the state, and still
Mhm.
do the work. But man, you almost have to be like an iconic voice actor to do that. I mean, I was doing animation before I left, and I did a little moving here during COVID because everybody was recording remotely. So what difference did it make? My area code, it didn't matter. But once people have started to go back into studio, I work less and less and less in animation all the time because I'm remote, and I have experience, and I've had relationships, right? And yet there's something about being in person for animation that is, unless you're in the middle of a pandemic, is crucial, is vital, and it is seen that way, right? So you're right. It depends upon what genre you want to be in, and depending if you want to do promos and you haven't coached, then it would be like, well, here's who I'd coach with. Here are your odds, and then you get to decide how you're gonna process all that information, and choose whether or not you're going to pursue it. But yeah, so
Thank you.
good. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, Joy. Hey, you just need to come off a
A
mute.
new,
There you go.
hi,
Hi.
hi, Kay. I
How
do
are
have
you?
a question in
Yeah,
regards. Hi, good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
I do have a question in regards to the P to P sites,
Uh-huh.
and which I am on, and I am working my tail feathers off. And in regards to the deadlines, I um I try to get in there early, but sometimes some of the ones I do receive are maybe about a day or two before the deadlines that I
Uh-huh.
do get. Am I wasting my time as far as submitting an audition?
If you're
Do you
if you're
think?
sending it in advance, if you're sending it
Like if I'm like 1 or 2 days from the deadline,
away from the deadline or before the deadline? After?
a day or two before the deadline.
No, no, you're not wasting your time if you send it in before the deadline. You want to send it in as early as you can.
Right. I want to send it as early as I can, but sometimes I get an email with maybe about, oh, okay, I'm gonna start auditioning, but sometimes the deadline may be about 2 days. I'm outside 2 days at the deadline.
Yeah,
Like I'm pretty close to the deadline.
you're pretty close to the deadline. Yeah, as
Right.
long as if you're on a pay to play site and they've given you a date and they've given you, the number of auditions that they are intending to review, right? So there might be 50. And it will tell you, if we're talking about voice 123, it'll say 39 of 50 received. So you have 11 more people, to jump in front of, right? And so you
Okay.
want to turn it in quickly, right? Now,
Right.
if it says 65 out of 50 received and there's still 2 days left, I wouldn't turn
Mm-hmm.
that in. I wouldn't waste my time because
Okay.
they've already received 15 more than what they wanted to receive in the first place. So what are
I
my
see.
odds, right? My odds aren't great.
Right.
So let's move to the next
Right.
one and see if I can get inside of not only the deadline, but the number of auditions that they're willing to listen to,
To
right?
listen to.
Yeah.
Right.
So
You're
they
right.
they give those two pieces. So you want to be early and you want a low number.
Okay.
That's yeah,
Right.
that's the quickness factor. Now if they're only asking for 20 and I turn it in and I'm 19, I feel pretty good about that. I think they're going to listen to all 20, but if it's 100 and I'm 94, I don't know. I don't know that that's worth my time.
Right.
What are the
Right.
odds? You have to sort of check the odds, but
Ah, right.
yeah.
Because unfortunately, a site like Backstage, for instance, for example, I am working on one right now, but the deadline is tomorrow.
Hmm.
Right. They just give you a date. They don't give you a number of auditions that are already turned in.
Okay, then all you have to do is pay attention to the date, and if you get it in before the date, great. I find backstage to be a very, very long crapshoot. You know, it's not where I would
Oh,
focus my time and energy if I was working pay to play sites. But if you like backstage and you want to put your effort there, then just make sure it's turned in before the deadline, right? That's what I would do.
okay.
Yeah.
So early.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Early. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got
And in
it.
this case, it's like early is on time, you know?
Okay.
It's not like noon. Okay, I'm going to get it in at the stroke of 12 p.m. That doesn't make it on
Mm-hmm.
time. That actually makes it late, you know.
Late.
You
Mm-hmm.
want as early as possible for the deadline, right? There are times I get
Okay.
auditions from Atlas and they're due, today's Tuesday, it's due Friday, but I'm like, okay, I have time to do it. I'm just going to do it and I'm going to turn it in. Now that just takes it off my desk. It puts it on theirs, and they're going to still turn it in whenever they put their whole package together to send to casting, but it's off my plate and I don't have to think about it and I can move on to the next one. So, um, yeah. So as soon as you can before the deadline is what I would say. So, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Um, who else? Anybody? There was a question about somebody else have a let's see. Um, yeah, I get rolling auditions a few times. It doesn't happen all the time. Um, yes, I see more and more rush auditions. I think those happen, certainly they happen in political, that's just the nature of the beast. But let's see. I don't think there are any more questions in here. Anybody else? There you are, Miss Kwan. Hey, Joy, can you lower your hand? Yeah. So just
Hi. You just mentioned to Joy that backstage was like a crapshoot, and I was wondering if there were pay to play sites that you preferred or recommended, or if other people on here are on them. I've had just mixed the voice 1, 2, 3. I've had mixed reviews from my
sure.
colleagues like that tried it and didn't like it, or you have to be in a certain tier to make it worthwhile and pay up, this sort
Yeah.
of thing. So I'm
I'll
wondering
give
how
you my
successful you think.
I'll give you my general overview and then I'm going to hand it over to Jen Greenfield.
Okay. Okay.
I feel like they all have their benefits and they all have their pitfalls. And I think whatever pay to play sites you go to and use, you just have to be prepared to contend with what they are, and you choose what you want to contend with.
Okay.
Um, that's just an overarching, that's so not specific, obviously. So I am not on voices.com. I have been on Voice 123. I never audition there anymore. I get all kinds of auditions, but I don't do it anymore. Um, I think if I didn't have an agent, I would audition there more, and that would probably be the site that I would focus on, and my day would look very different than it does now. I think I'd be in my booth so much more, and uh, because I think I it's such a process getting auditions that are suitable to you, that belong to you, and that's a whole process of keywording, but it's also you have to reply if how many times do I get things for African American women, and it's like, that's not me. Like, why am I getting this audition? And then you have to go and you have to or I'll get like, we need bilingual, and I'm like, nowhere in my site does it say bilingual. I am not bilingual, right? So you have to answer their questions, like what keywords are in this that are not suitable to you, and you have to answer it. You have to stay on top of it. and the more you do that, the more focused the auditions become. But again, you have to sort of learn about the particular algorithms, which then get changed up, and then you have to keep you. So it's like constant attention. I'm a big fan of Natasha Marchevka and Catherine Toll's course, V123 Pros, because they teach you about how to stay on top of the algorithm and sort of what to do and how to manage the site. And it's still a lot to manage, but and I think it's really imperative when you're on those sites to be prepared to work, even though, it takes a lot to win a job. You still have to be prepared to work. You have to be a professional prepared to work, because you don't want to experiment on clients. You don't want to practice on a legit client. You know what I mean? So that's my overarching thing. Jen, I'm sorry to pick on you, but I feel like you know more about this than I do.
I don't mind talking at all. No, and I'll be brief, actually. I like what Jeff said, and it's something that I've advocated for. And Kay is in a unique position, like where the industry was 20 plus years ago and where it is today, and also where it was 5 years ago.
Yes.
And where it is today. Incrementally, it's just completely changed. In a perfect world, you have direct relationships with folks and you're working with agents. In 2024, there's all these pay to plays, but and unfortunately, what you have to remember is it's a corporation. So what people don't know is Backstage bought Voices 123. Voices 123 owns Mandy. A whole other company bought all three of them. They're called like Craft and I'm making that up, Craft and Market or something. So you have to remember too that that's what really stinks is you're just feeding the corporate monster. Like it's a reality and you are. And the good and bad, like Kay said, can I get 20, 30 auditions in my inbox by being a part of all these pay to plays? Absolutely. But if I'm not in the top 20 submissions, good chance I'm not even going to get listened to. Same thing what she said. Half of them probably don't even apply to me. And then the other third quarter are probably so low rated budgets that I'm like, oh my gosh, like why am I even, I don't want to do this, right? So in theory, yes, it's a place where you really don't have to do the work. If you can pay the money and be on the site or pay to be on whatever tier you feel comfortable with, you can get the auditions. Great. But I will tell you, with just the way things are changing and churning to what Jeff Burns said, and it's something I advocate for anytime I talk about voiceover, is you need to do the work. Don't allow the algorithms, don't allow the pay to plays to do the work for you, because you're going to find it'll take longer. Yeah, but you're going to find a lot more success building relationships, working with your local businesses, join your the Chamber of Commerce, do networking events. When you're working directly with people, it just changes the game. They get to know you. They get to talk to you. They hear your voice. Someone said, do you need demos to go to agents? I mean, yeah, but that's a whole nother conversation, right? If you want to start working and you've done the work, you've done the coaching, you've got the studio, you know how to deliver conversational, you know how to deliver corporate reads, you know how to do that, man, just build your business. Like think about it. I tell people this all the time. I'm like, do you think, like voiceovers, I have no other way to say this. My husband's listening. He thinks it's hilarious. He's like, I have never, ever seen an industry where everybody is so involved in each other's business. He's like, he goes, he's the senior project manager. He's like, do you think all the senior project managers are talking about their salaries and what they charge? And he's like, no, he's like, you're a freelancer. You're a business owner. Make your business what you want it to be. Grow it how you can. But the most successful business owners, Bill Gates, all of them, it's because they talk to people. They go where the people are. They didn't say, yeah, I got online and waited for jobs to come to me. I'm not trying to be ugly. I'm trying to say there's opportunities that people are like, I'm not even taking advantage of that. Why am I not talking to my family and friends and the businesses where I shop? Things like that. And so when it comes to the pay to plays, yes, it is an opportunity to get the auditions, but like Kay said, and it's so perfectly stated, is you also don't want to be wasting your time where you could have been networking or maybe working through LinkedIn, auditioning for a bunch of $50 jobs that are for 6-year-old Japanese boys,
Right.
So.
Yeah. Thank you, Jen. I'll say this too. Like, I think that there are, I just did Mark Scott's podcast. And I went on his podcast and interviewed him. And I essentially did it for my my coaching clients, because one of the number one questions I get is, how do I market, and how do I find work, and I'm like, Jen's right. I come from another world. I mean, I literally started in 1985. I went before there were pagers. Like, and there were no cell phones, and there wasn't any internet. And so when an agent recorded us, it was recorded onto reel to reel, and it was delivered across town to an advertising agency by a courier. I mean, it's so archaic. I mean, I may as well say they put it on the Wells Fargo wagon, drawn by horses. It's like, it's that archaic. So it is a different world. And so I can't answer questions about marketing except to say it's necessary. But I have no method of that because it is not from whence I came. And so I think Jen's point is huge, that if you want to do pay to play stuff, I do highly recommend V123 Pros. And I think you can get to it by that, v123pros.com. I recommend it. It'll at least give you a leg up into the algorithm that it is, right? But then I think really go check out what Mark Scott teaches, because he doesn't, I asked him, I'm like, do you have an agent? He goes, yeah, I have an agent. And he goes, and that accounts for less than 10% of my work. He builds relationships, as Jen it said, and he does that by marketing, and he has a long view about it. He told me a story about, and he uses a client relations management software that gives him all the history of every potential client that he has. And so he said, I looked back on this one client and I've been conversing with them for 9 years. And he said, and you know what? They finally booked me on something. And he goes, so was it worth the 9 years of just a conversation? Yeah. So what's our expectation, that we're just going to call somebody and they're going to hire us like that? It doesn't work that way either. So I recommend checking him out. He has a group, if you're not there already, and I think a lot of you may be, but if you're not there already, he has a group on Facebook called VOpreneur, like entrepreneur, but with VOpreneur. And he's on YouTube. You can find his website through that. He has courses, kind of small bite-sized courses that you can get. He does workshops every once in a while, sort of small workshops, that might be limited. I think he said, I don't know, 6, 8, or 10. I can't remember the number, but it's usually a very specific topic, So I recommend him, and I also recommend Tracy Lindley's LinkedIn course. Again, this is not an expensive course. And it teaches you many things, not the least of which is how to populate your LinkedIn profile. And then from what I remember, because I took it again, I take the things that I recommend because I don't think it would be good if I recommended them without taking them. But she also gives you templates, about sort of how, if you don't know how to talk to a potential client, I don't know how to talk to a potential client. I'm sure I use all the wrong language, and there's really inviting language, and there's language that's typical and rote and nobody responds to, and there's language that people do respond to, and those are the things that we have to learn. So I do recommend those things. Tracy Lindley, Mark Scott, and Natasha Marchevka and Catherine Toll's class, V123 Pros. And, voiceover in the 21st century is the Wild West. It is. It used to be sort of a 1 or 2 avenue thing that you always ended up with an agent. It's like, well, how did you get to the agent? You either got to the agent by way of, being a radio personality, or by being an actor. That was how it worked. It's not like that anymore at all. It's not like that. I think there's still a lot of that people in those professions do go the agent route, but that is just becoming a narrower and narrower scope of the field. And as the union, continues to evolve or devolve, whichever way you want to look at it, they, to a large degree, the union becomes less and less significant. And the more they push new avenues out, which is crazy to me, but it's real, the more I think that we have to explore all the other avenues and bring it back to personal relationships and developing those things on our own. Interestingly enough, when Atlas Talent came into being, they came into being in the early 2000s, and they formed 4 agents left Buchwald Agency in New York City, and they formed Atlas Talent. And in the early 2000s was when there was a huge shift in voiceover, and it kind of started, it's such an age-old story, and I repeat myself, but the commercial strike, exactly, Jeff Burns. The commercial strike was huge. The internet, the coming of age of the internet, and what used to be known as voicebank.net, which became voices.com. Voices.com eventually morphed out of that, right? And so when specifically commercials had it was like central casting, right? So businesses could go to one source instead of going to a bunch of different agents, and it made the agents come to the one source, right, to pick up the auditions. I mean, though, that was the trifecta, right? So Atlas came into being when all of that was happening, and all of the major established union players were falling apart. They did not know what to do with these new things coming in, right? And so they sort of sat back and were like, oh, well, we're just going to go get these auditions from the main casting thing, and we don't really have to cultivate relationships anymore because we're just going to go there and pick up all the auditions. And then it became a free for all, right? And so a bunch of talent agencies closed. They just couldn't handle it, right? And so, the cream rises to the top, but Atlas came in and was like, we're not playing that game. We're going to get on the road and we're going to go talk to people, and we're going to continue to build relationships. And that's what they did, you know. It's just sort of a famous little story, but, you know, John Wasser from Atlas Talent, he kind of owns the affiliate news genre. And the reason that he owns that is because he drove across the country and stopped at virtually every TV state affiliate station and shook hands with the program, you know, director, right? Face to face, right? And so the vast majority of those stations still work with John Wasser because he has a personal relationship with them, right? So they did what Jen is suggesting now that actors do. Like we're not going to play the old game of saying I got to get an agent. I got to get an agent to have a career. I got to get an agent to have a career. No, you don't. You have to go out and build relationships to get it, to have a career. You know? So it's an interesting parallel, but that is what it is, you know? So unless you come from an acting background and you are in New York or LA and sometimes Chicago, because Chicago is a huge advertising town. And so they get a lot of, and it's also a big theater town, right? So I would say those three places, that those are the main hubs that are still sort of hanging on to the old model. So, you know, so people do still come up that way, but it's just fewer and fewer and fewer all the time. So there, I will now step off my soapbox. Um, yes, there were two unions instead of one. Yeah, that is a whole that's a whole thing too. Don't I like I might be run out of town if I give all my opinions on the union. But suffice it to say, you know, things have changed and are different. Oh, every time I move, I take myself out of focus. But anyway, let's see. I'm gonna see if I turn off my camera. It will. I'll be right back. Where did I go? Oh, now I'm gone. I have to turn my. Okay, I'm back. Oh, see, look, it worked. Okay. So that is the story on that, Ms. Kwan.
Great, thank you.
Long answer. So
I know I
okay.
got a little soapboxy too. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I
No,
do
there's
feel
just
like
a
it's
lot to manage in this career, you know,
totally
like
there
this
is.
and that, and then the lessons and the courses and the
Yeah,
marketing. And so
yeah,
you're doing all the engineering at home yourself. So
yeah,
it's just a lot to handle.
yeah. So which leads me to, you know, to this thought, you know, that if somebody tells you that you can earn six figures in 6 months, run, 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 because it's not true. It's just not. I don't care how talented you are. If that's a needle in a haystack kind of thing. Will somebody be able to say, yes, I took that course and I made my first, you know, I landed six figures after 5.5. Yes, somebody will be able to say that. But uh, not many people. So it's just throwing good money after bad, you know? So, um, all right. I've kept you for an hour and 17 minutes. Which I think is enough.
America.
So let me just hey Joy, can you mute? Thanks. Um
Sorry.
that's okay. That's all right. So just to reiterate, I have a workshop coming up. If you saw the announcement, I am changing the dates. It will now be in the I think the second full weekend of November, 9-10. I think that's it. I'll send out a correction on that. It's acting based, Meisner based. It's real person based, not creature character, gnarly video game stuff based. With an enchanted, princess and perhaps a few elven creatures thrown in, but that are just more human characteristic than creature characteristics. It's 2 days, 10 hours of working time total, and should be fun. So, as always, I thank you so much for your time and your attention and your participation, and your willingness to share your experiences and your questions. And if I can ever be of help to you, let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you online, and I'll see you in a month. Right on.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Ciao.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Kay.
Yeah.